You open an email from your Australian bank. It's asking whether you are a US citizen, a US tax resident, or a tax resident of another country. And suddenly, your mind starts racing. Why are they asking this? Is my bank reporting me to the IRS? Will the IRS know about my Australian accounts? And what if I haven't filed tax returns for years? If this sounds familiar, this video is for you. Because the problem is not just the bank form. The real problem is the uncertainty. You do not know what is being reported, what the IRS can see, what forms you may have missed, or whether you should be worried. So today, I'm going to explain FATCA in plain English for US expats living in Australia. Not to scare you, but to help you understand what is happening and what to do next. My name is Vilma Soloria. I am an Australian CPA and a US IRS enrolled agent. I help explain cross-border US and Australian tax issues for US citizens, green card holders, and dual citizens living abroad, especially here in Australia. And I know this topic can be stressful because from the Australian side, your bank account may feel completely normal. You live here, you work here, you pay tax here, and you use your Australian banks like everyone else. But from the US side, if you are still a US citizen, green card holder, or otherwise known as US tax person, your Australian accounts may still matter for US tax reporting purposes. That is where FATCA anxiety begins. But anxiety usually comes from not knowing the rules. So, let's make the rules clearer. Before we continue, this video is general information only. It is not tax, legal, accounting, or financial advice. Please speak with a qualified cross-border tax advisor before acting. Let's start with the question most people ask first. Why is my Australian bank asking if I'm a US citizen or foreign tax resident? The reason is automatic exchange of information. Australia participates in international reporting systems where financial institutions collect information about customers who may be foreign tax residents. For US citizens and US tax residents, the relevant system is called FATCA, the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act. Australian financial institutions must identify accounts held by customers who are foreign tax residents or entities connected to foreign tax residents. Those accounts are reported to the ATO, and the ATO then report the information to the relevant foreign tax authority. So if you are a US person in Australia, your bank may ask for your US tax status and taxpayer identification number because the bank has legal obligations to comply with these international reporting systems where Australia participates. So here is the plan. If your bank asks what is your US status, use this 5-step framework. This will not replace professional advice, but it will help you understand what to review. Step 1. Confirm whether you are a US citizen, green card holder, or US tax resident. This is important because your bank will ask about citizenship, tax residency, and taxpayers' identification numbers. Step 2. List all your accounts, not just accounts that earn income, or has big balances. Include accounts where you only have signature authority. This matters because US reporting forms do not all work the same way. It's important to gather all the information. Step 3. Understand the difference between FATCA, FBAR, and Form 8938. This is where many US expats get confused. FATCA is partly an information exchange system involving foreign financial institutions and tax authorities. FBAR is a separate US reporting requirement for foreign financial accounts. Form 8938 is a FATCA-related form attached to your US income tax return when you meet the relevant threshold. This is why expat tax compliance can be tricky. Different systems, different forms, different thresholds, and different penalties. The goal is to make them line up. Step 4. Check for consistency. This is one of the most important parts of the video. The biggest risk is not simply having an Australian account. The bigger risk is mismatch. For example, your Australian bank identifies you as a US citizen, but you have never filed a US tax return. Or your FBAR says one account exists, but your Form 8938 tells a different story. Or you reported interest income in your US return, but you did not disclose foreign financial accounts were required. Or your bank has treated you as a possible foreign tax resident because you did not respond to their FATCA or CRS form request. That is why ignoring bank forms can make the situation worse. Not because every form creates tax, but because silence can create assumption. Step 5. Choose the right path if you are behind. If you are up to date, the next step may be reviewing whether your filings are complete. If you are behind, the next step is not to panic, but it is also not to ignore the issue. You may need to review US tax returns, FBARs, Form 8938, and possibly other international information forms. Depending on your facts, there may be formal cuts-up options available for some taxpayers. But the correct path depends on whether your failure to file was non-willful, what forms are missing, whether tax is owed, whether the IRS has already contacted you, and other facts. This is why rushing into random late filing can be risky. You want a strategy, not a scramble. What happens if you ignore the bank forms? Let's talk about what is at stake. If you ignore FATCA or bank tax residency questions, a few things can happen. Your financial institution may classify you based on available information. Your account information may still be reported. Your US filings may not match what is visible through financial reporting systems. And if you deliberately or recklessly provide false or misleading information, penalties may apply. So the issue is not just whether your bank reports your account. The issue is whether your answers, your records, and your US tax filings are consistent. This is where many people make mistakes. Australian tax compliance and US tax compliance are separate systems. They can overlap, but one does not automatically replace the other. But let's also talk about the positive side. When you understand FATCA, you stop reacting emotionally to every bank question because you know why the bank is asking. You know what information may be reported, and you know the difference between the FATCA, FBAR, and Form 8938. You also know whether your US filings need review. And if you are behind, you can look at the correct cuts up options instead of guessing. That is what we want, clarity. Because when you know where you stand, you can make better decisions. As an Australian CPA and IRS enrolled agent, the way I look at this is simple. FATCA is not something to panic about, but it is also not something to dismiss. For US expats in Australia, FATCA is a reminder that your Australian financial life and your US tax obligations may be connected. That does not mean everything is taxable. That does not mean every account creates a penalty. But it does mean you should review the reporting position carefully. The earlier you review it, the more options you usually have. If you want help reviewing your US tax position, talk to a human. You can call us at 617-3203-6789 or email us at hello@usautax.com to book a clarity call.